Greetings, salutations, good morning, good night, good evening from wherever you are. This is John, and this is my podcast, Thought and Its Freedom. Today, I'll be sharing with you a bit about my thoughts during the Sabbath hours, what came to me during the sermon or afterward or even before. So please sit down and enjoy. So I was seated in church today and I noticed there is a new couple that sat next to me. It's a young couple. It's actually, they're like guests. It's their first time to worship in that church, and they had a child, a small young child, maybe, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, maybe 3 years, let me say, a young boy. And as they were sat in church, the child was going crazy. The child couldn't sit down and the child kept making noise. So I came to the thinking, what is it that makes a child behave like that in the house of God? There are some kids, of course, who don't make as much noise, but it seems like there are some who, even at the stern rebuke of a parent, it's like they would forget very quickly and just go back to making noise. So I was considering all these thoughts, and I remember there is a particular set of quotes from Ellen White on this issue. I believe it's either Child Guidance, the book Child Guidance, or Adventist Home, where she talks about this, that, first of all, the characters parents develop, by and large, is what they pass on to their children. And then secondly, you have the effect of those characters in the atmosphere at home is also part and parcel of all that. The third thing has to do with diet and eating habits. So let me begin with the third one. When a child is habituated to eat whenever they cry for food or whenever they want, they generally do not grow with a predisposition of self-control. What do I mean by this? When I consider my sister's kids, my 3 nieces, even as young as they could be whenever they were like very young, of course they are of different ages, when we would visit church with them, they were very, very, very disciplined, very disciplined. And if you spend an evening or at night with my sister and her husband and the family, you're going to realize when it comes to eating, there are certain rules, it doesn't necessarily mean that there are specific rules, although maybe there's an argument that can be made for that. But I don't think they are vegans, but they have regular meals, they have meals at regular times. So no eating between meals, and when it's lunch, it's lunch. When it's supper, it's supper. And it's always at a regular time. And then in the evening, there's this particular rule I found interesting. They do not take carbohydrates for evening meals. And it's almost always light. And they also sleep early and generally wake up early. So you can see how, though, having that system of regulation with regard to diet and also eating habits, what it does to the general disposition and character of the child. The child grows up knowing that certain things are done at certain times, and they get to own that kind of a self-culture, such that they are disciplined from how they carry themselves. It's something that, you don't need a rod or a stick. You don't need to introduce punishment to teach that. You allow them to grow in that atmosphere and own those decision-making mechanisms for themselves. So that was the third one. The number 2 and number 1, as I had initially began with, the character of the parent. It affects the atmosphere of the house, and it teaches, because usually, for the most part, when they begin observing the world around them, children grow and learn by observation, of course, and imitation. So in the house, for example, if swear words are used, you're easily going to see that. And many of you who are, teachers of children, this. You've seen this in your own teaching practice. I remember the first time I had, a swear word and an abuse. I must have been in grade 4. So you can imagine all that time, I had never heard anyone speak some kind of abuse, and it's because where I grew up, my mother and my father, that was just not part of their vocabulary. And even for my siblings, my older siblings, it just wasn't part of how we did our thing. And I can tell the particular child or classmate that I had speak in that manner was someone who probably came from a house or an environment where it was normal to use that kind of a language. So again, there's this very intricate balance between nature, between environment, and the slow unfolding of the senses to the world around them. It doesn't mean that you can, you of course, it's very impossible for you to hide your child from these things forever, because like in my case, I heard about it in school, but I had already been properly insulated by the character and mannerisms of my parents in the home, such that it even felt strange to hear those words, and those are not particular words that I had used or even came to use for the longest time ever. So my ending point is simply this, that when we talk about character formation, when we talk about building up a character as a young person growing up, there are so many preparations that go into marriage. Marriage is a divine institution, and one of the best ways to prepare for marriage and also for children is to work on your own character so that it reflects as much as possible the character of Jesus, because it will dictate the atmosphere in the house. It will dictate how your own child will develop their character, how they, what manner of disposition they have. You've seen instances where a parent is very quick, to use physical violence to punish the child, and that has an effect on this particular child. And it also dictates many other things going forward, things like how friendly are you going to be, especially in a crucial moment when they are adolescents and they're just, having all these changes in their lives. Are they going to hide a life from you? There are so many Christian parents who genuinely may love God and, want to serve Him, but because they overlook some of these so-called small things, they end up with errant children, and yet to a big margin is that they are to blame. They were not properly reflecting the character of Jesus. So again, also it goes in with choosing a spouse. What is their disposition? What is their character? How do they reason out issues? How open are they to correction? And these are same questions you also ask yourself. So I know my mind went into so many places and it was in the middle of the sermon, but that is one of the thoughts that came out for me during today's Sabbath service.